Hello everyone, my name is Ravi Gupta. I am currently a student at Metropolitan State University. This video presentation is for my security class 382. My topic today is malware, and I'll be focusing on these following items. So some of the items I'll be talking about are what malware are, types of malware, how do they infect host, how do they propagate, how do they hide, and how to detect them. So let's get started. So we'll start with the basic definition of what is a malware. A malware is a set of instructions that run on your computer and make your system do something that an attacker wants it to do. What is it good for? What can it do? It can steal a lot of personal information. It can also steal valuable data. It can also destroy data by infecting your machine or system. It can also have a denial of service, means even if you own a PC, it will reject and block your access. It can also use your computer as a relay to get into some other system and infect them as well. Alright, so what are some of the malware types? The one most common one, which at least everybody who uses a computer is very much familiar with the term, is virus. So virus is one of the top item for malware. The second in the list is the backdoor, Trojan horse, rootkit, scareware, adware, and the worms. So we're gonna start with the viruses. So what is the viruses? It's a malicious piece of code that spreads itself from file to file. So basically it will start infecting with the particular files, and then it will keep spreading until your computer is completely virus affected. A virus needs to have a host file. That's basically a medium of infecting your computer through a virus. It also requires a user interaction, so it doesn't happen on its own. It will require you to opening a file, or through an email, through a link, you will click something and that will execute. The virus will execute and start spreading around. What are some of the different types of viruses? So we have program viruses. So program viruses is basically you install something and they have injected a code within the program which will infect your computer and the system. There are boot viruses. The boot viruses are put in through mostly into the boot systems, and then there are macro viruses, which are a small way of getting the viruses into your system. All right, we're going to talk about the worms. What are the worms? It's a malicious piece of code that spreads itself from computer to computer by exploiting vulnerabilities. Worm does not require a host file as viruses do, and it can also spread without user interactions. So those are the two major differences from viruses, that the virus will need some sort of host file and user interaction to get that into the system and spread. So worms are much dangerous in that scenario. How the worms can spread, it can either be done through the email attachment or LAN or internet. This is also something on a big scale it used, like it mentioned here, the whole internet can be infected in less than 20 minutes. so the impact of worms are much higher. The next thing is the malicious scripts. Malicious script can be written in different programming or also the application level items such as JavaScript, VB script, ActiveX, and Flash. Malicious script can be hidden in email or website. The next thing we're going to talk about the Trojan viruses. So it also known as a Trojan horse, and this could be really hard to find because there are programs with hidden malicious functionalities. It commonly appears to be on screensavers, games, or other useful program. Mostly a lot of freeware program you'll get the Trojan viruses. Just like everybody says nowadays, there is an app for everything, but you don't know if those apps are already infected with the Trojan viruses or any other items. The next item is the backdoors and the rootkits. It's a secret entry point into a program system that allowed someone aware of the trapdoor to gain access without going through the usual security access procedure. The backdoor is usually left by programmers for debugging and testing purposes, intentionally or unintentionally. So since it's left by the programmer, it has access to system files, and it's already on the program itself, which can be used for a bad intention. What are the rootkits? The rootkits usually installed by an attacker after having gained root administrator access. So since basically it gets installed by attacker, they can modify the entire system and also avoid detection, so you wouldn't even know that our attacker has installed something malicious on the system. The next one is the logical bombs. Since it has word logical, these are very intentionally done and with a very specific instructions. So malicious code program can be activated on a very specific date, time, or circumstances. Action could be everything from formatting hard drive to display a silly message on the user screen like, hey, your system is hacked, and it can be done in a very systematic order. So the next one is blended threats. These are advanced malicious software that combines the characteristics of viruses, worms, trojans, and malicious script, are sometimes called blended threats. So whatever we discussed above, if you combine all, the term we use is blended threats. So let's go back to the viruses and talk about some of the phases and timelines. So viruses have 4 phases. The first one is the dormant phase. So basically virus is there, it is idle and waiting for some event to happen for you to click or run a specific program. The second phase is the triggering phase. Basically this activate to perform some intended actions. So as soon as you hit or click on certain things in your PC, it will trigger that phase and virus will start getting spreaded. The propagation phase. So basically since the virus is first it gets to one file and then it starts spreading around. So how does it propagate? It copy itself into other programs. Execution phase. Once the viruses are on many location, it can execute the payload and start infecting more and more over time. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about the life cycle of a virus. A virus gets created and released. The virus infects several machines. Samples are sent to antivirus companies, record a signature from the virus. The companies include the new signature in their database. Their scanner now can detect the virus. So this is really hard because there are thousands of new viruses released every day, and if those viruses are not sent to one of the antivirus companies, it would be hard to detect. So there is a lot of reporting mechanism user uses to provide it to antivirus companies and make sure they can add those to their list. So once you purchase one of those antivirus software, it can detect. Alright, so I'm gonna skip. I have a lot of notes I have written here, so I'm looking through and I want to make sure I cover the item which is useful for the end user and learn something. So this isn't for any security expert. This is more for overall people who use their PCs on a daily basis, and this will give them a basic understanding of these viruses and also how they can prevent it. So the next item, I do want to bring a discussion question to think about. Do you think it's a good idea to spread worms with system patches? So that's something for a user to think about. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Trojan. So Trojan, this is a program with hidden side effects that are not specified in the program documentation and are not intended by the user executing the program. So it's not something officially you will see, but once you have that program running, they can inject certain codes which will lead to a Trojan virus while you're installing a certain piece of software. So now I want to talk about, looking at the time here, I do want to talk about some of the things you can do to prevent from malware from happening. So how to prevent malware? So the first item in my list is regularly update your operating system, browser, and plugins. So in the past, once you have the operating system, you really don't have to well maintain by keeping everything up to date, but things are changing. There are more ways the malware can get to your system. It can infect your system. You can lose all your personal files. So if there is an update to your computer waiting, don't let it wait around too long. Update to operating system, browser, and plugins as often as you can, because these does not just fixes the some of the vulnerability in the program, but it also secures you and also makes a good interaction with that piece of software or plugin you use. Second one is enable click-to-play plugins. So one of more devious way that exploit kits are delivered to your computer is malvertising. So malvertising, as you can see, it's made up with malware and advertising, and there are a lot of a lot of freeware application, and the site